Good day folks, I am Wallace, and today I invite you to join me as we explore the story of Diablo Immortal's first expansion, called Terror's Tide. This time our journey will take us to Stormpoint, a forgotten island in the westernmost part of Khanduras, a place that has recently caught the attention of Diablo. Now, in order to fully understand this story, we must remember that after the defeat of Skarn, the Lord of Damnation, Diablo's soul was freed within the burning hells, and if it hadn't been for Veraciel's sacrifice, the Lord of Terror would have been able to reawaken. And from that moment, Kain began to fear the worst for Sanctuary, and sent word to an old friend, someone that could help us in these dark days. This is where this new chapter starts, as Kain's friend just arrived in Westmarch. His name is Karshun, an accomplished mage from Xiansai, and everything seems to point out that his mentor was Armus, as Kain said he met his teacher in Kurast when he was hunting for Mephisto. Captain Rem was the man in charge of Karshun's trip to Westmarch, which took a wrong turn upon their arrival in town as creatures started attacking the guest. Creatures that were already on the ship, but the only thing unusual that Rem brought back from his trip was some human bodies he found floating north of the Gulf. So the monster must have somehow managed to hide in those corpses. An unfortunate event indeed, but Karshun easily handled it just before Kain showed up.
You've gone grey, young man.
Not nearly as grey as I should, Elder.
Karshun was a mage formerly of the Yishari Sanctum, the headquarters of the mage clans located in Chaldeum, and his expertise was in the way of divination. A bit like Kain, he spent much of his life studying the cults of the great evils, and that made him a potentially great ally. He pretended that the stars had aligned on our mighty hero's head, and whatever that meant, he was eager to work with us. Now, following the events on the boat, he rapidly prepared a divination spell and allowed us to follow him as long as we touched nothing. The spell brought us in what seemed to be a keep, an unknown place similar to Westmarch in its architecture. I mean, we were definitely in Stormpoint, but that our hero didn't know. Karshun confirmed that what we were seeing was happening in real time, and the only real danger here were those unpleasant terrorist guests harassing the guards. Until...
The Lord of Terror has heard your promises. He will not forget them. Take Stormpoint, find the shard, and you will join me at his side. Hold. I know not how, but we are being watched from beyond the veil.
There is an odd aura about you. What have you... We need to flee. Through the gate.
That Bride of Hell had managed to sunder our astral connection, and if we were not coming back in time, our souls could split from our bodies. Jumping from an astral tier to another, we tried to flee as the angry bride was trying to kill us, and in the last moment, we finally escaped, bringing with us the head of Ifris the Destroyer as a trophy, even though he was technically already dead, as our hero killed him while we were only a novice back in Wortham. I mean, it could have been his brother, but come on, that would be... Anyway, even though that trip to the stars was dangerous, it was well worth it as it confirmed our greatest fear. Diablo was actively trying to get back into Sanctuary, and he had spotted another Worldstone shard. The time had come for a new adventure.
To the west, where iron defies the sea, the wolf of Westmarch hides its spoils. Its guardian's long watch comes to an ignominious end, as evil cascades downward in flame and fury. Terror has been unleashed. Fear and despair spread like wildfire, consuming innocent and guilty alike. Blood stains stone. Relentlessly, they march towards the Shard. A beacon of unearthly power, drowned by hungering tides.
Stormpoint, a secluded place on the western shore of Khanduras, an isolated island that had served only as a clandestine prison for some of the most dangerous beings in Sanctuary. But upon our arrival, it felt more like a butcher's room than a prison. We could feel blood in the wind, and only have we done 10 steps that a terrible winged creature was summoned from the abyss.
Dread herald of Diablo, take your throne above us. Let terror bloom in the garden of flesh.
Things were not going pretty well here, and according to the amount of cultists and Diablo's minions on this island, it was a matter of time before one of them tripped over the shard. And having no clue on where to start, we did the only right thing that came to a necromancer's mind and followed the smell of blood, only to find Citadel, a desperate Stormpoint soldier. He had seen them arrive, the biggest army he saw in his life, taken captive, drowning innocents, cutting throats. And according to him, the elf forces would be close to the fortress by now, and more of them were coming out of portals every minute. The entire island was not safe. After we cleared the area, Cecil showed us the way to the fortress without omitting to tell us that between us and the keep stood a couple of shanties, rustic homes for the guards' husbands, wives and children. In other terms, many innocents were in danger or already dead. And right as we were about to leave, we found a young boy that had somehow managed to hide under this massive tomb cover. The child's name was Hesman, an orphan that pretended to know a shortcut to the fortress and that really wanted to fight. But it was way too dangerous to let him come with us, so we let him come with us. We learned from the child that the cultists were taken captive, asking questions and killing those who gave the wrong answers. He also said that they were looking for the art of creation, probably speaking of the Worldstone shard here, but that we already knew. Our route soon crossed what seemed to be a shanties, and the only survivor died before we could do anything. Esmond was devastated, and finally told us that the real reason why he wanted to go north was to find Fern, his little sister and only family left. That was enough to convince our big-hearted hero, and so we accepted his help, starting with the shortcut he proposed earlier. We let the boy take care of his friends right, and agreed to meet up later near the entrance of a cave he pointed out, northwest of here. And again we were back on trail, but our hero decided to make a little detour after he spoke with Posho, another shanties. The men had heard of a potential location where the cultists were bringing their captive, and it was our duty to help them. That place was not far, and after a little bloodbath, we managed to disrupt their messy ritual. But neither Fern nor any living soul had been left behind. Curiously, that place happened to be the entrance of Esmond's shortcut, and he reappeared out of nowhere. He advised us to take a deep breath and jumped into the sea.
Just hold your breath and kick your legs. Don't panic. The sea knows.
The water brought us inside the Citadel cavern, where dozens of bodies were piled up. This lair had been taken by Achilles, the throne lashed, and he was firmly waiting for us. He was the first of the 3 leaders of Diablo's cult to directly interfere in our journey and gave us a good fight, before escaping like a coward. As the cave was about to collapse, our hero blindly trusted Esmond and followed him outside. But the boy's shortcut was not as accurate as he thought, and we ended up nowhere near the entrance of the keep. Out of solutions ourselves, we once again trusted Esmond with a new idea I brought up. Our party big brain thought of using explosive to create a hole in the keep's wall, and he was confident to find some of those explosives in the big ship lying just on our side, as they were often carried in the cargo of these big boats. At least that's what Esmond pretended. So we began our little treasure hunt, and while we were rolling our search check, we overheard a mysterious voice in the air.
In a cage of steel, with a beast at his side.
The cultists had found a clue, and according to Esmond, they could be talking about the old prison in the keep. Another good reason to head there. Luckily for us, Esmond was right, and this time we might have found a solution to enter the fortress. Once again, our necromancer split up from the child and took the direction of the closest wall, which took quite a while to reach, as the path was becoming more and more dangerous. Eventually, we arrived in sight of the great Citadel, which stood like a giant standing in the middle of the sea. And God bless the pirates, the explosives worked like a charm. The guards inside the walls didn't seem to bother that we destroyed their defenses. They had seen much worse in the last day. And probably because we were not a demon, they didn't ask questions and showed us the way to the prison. But the path was guarded.
Look! To the sky! No!
This big terror bird was extremely powerful, but hopefully it didn't spot us and we continued our deadly ascension of the keep. On our way we learned from a wounded soldier that the commander of Stormpoint had taken refuge in the Great Hall and decided, for some unknown reason, to go to him before heading to the prison. But once again the path was guarded, and this time by the second leader of the Cult of Terror, Viv Mestros.
You were told to hand over the stone. Arcanes was very clear. As you writhe in the Dark Lord's maw, remember your pride.
That witch didn't last much longer than Akini's, and from what she said earlier, the cult hadn't found the shard yet. The first good news since we stepped in Stormpoint. And after a little demonstration of our capacities, we were allowed the entrance in the Great Hall and a meeting with Commander Kenton. The situation here was bad. The lightning monster we saw earlier was continuously spreading hell on the walls, and they were losing the battle. And when we asked for the prison, the commander said that we were the second savior of Stormpoint to ask for it today.
Who's the first?
The guy was named Zaytem, the sort of hero that never shows his eyes. And according to his speech, he was only there to cleanse the soul of the fanatics. A priest, maybe? He proposed to split up. He would cover the air and our hero the sea, as those were the only two ways to reach the prison. And so we slowly started our descent in hell. Imagine a humongous prison, filled with the most dangerous beasts and criminals in Sanctuary, and now corrupted by the Lord of Terror himself. Who knows what atrocities were waiting down there. And inside that terrifying place, we stumbled on the most unexpected creature. A hobbit. No, actually it was Fern, the little sister lost. I don't know how she even got there at first, but she managed to stay alive and unwounded, and as a matter of coincidence, Esmond appeared out of nowhere, chased by a gigantic sea monster. I'll spare you the part where the two kids got into a fight and skip to the point where Fern told us that a man in the Cage of Steel must be the warden. And because it would have been kind of irresponsible to let the two kids alone in such a place, we let them lead the way to the Man of Steel. His name was Woodrue, but it would have been inaccurate to call him a man, as his mind and body were twisted.
I held it, cradled it.
Woodrue was once the prison's warden, and one night he found the shard. He noticed something special about the stone and kept it in his bedstand. Soon after, Kenton gave the order to seal the place up, but the warden decided to stay, as someone needed to make sure that those monsters never gets out in the wild again. Woodrue ended up alone, and the shard slowly consumed his soul, transforming him into this abomination, and hopefully killing it would restore what he had left of sanity. Unfortunately, the warden had lost the stone, so we were back to square one. And before we could even begin to think about our next move, the sea monster made an unexpected comeback. Esmond was beside himself and started to chase the monster. We followed him all the way into the Deep Strider's lair until he jumped into the water himself. Zaytem reappeared at this exact moment, and the two heroes team up to save the child.
Take the beast's attention away. While it's focused on you, I will find them.
That Deep Strider behemoth was strong, tough, and somewhat ugly, but he perished like all the others and released the Worldstone shard he had kept all this time.
Come here, quickly! I'm going back for the boy!
At this moment, a difficult choice was to be made. Protecting Fern or retrieving the shard and saving thousands of people from annihilation. So our noble hero made the only right decision to be made, and rushed to save the child.
Fear guides your every move.
You could have spared yourself so much.
Achilles had got what he wanted, but maybe there was still a chance to stop him before he reached Diablo.
They can't carry it far. They'd be at Diablo's side if they could.
Bring it to the Bride of Hell.
She may need longer to prepare its journey.
If you take it, I'll follow. No matter where you run. Save yourself the time.
You think to frighten me? More than the Lord of Terror himself. I will show you fear.
Great One, ease from your throne and burn the sky black!
We had been waiting for this fight from the moment we saw that beast for the first time, and it was to be as epic as expected. Between lightning and claws, wings and maw we fought, and on the very tip of Stormpoint Keep we brought Shumbel down, sending him back to the fiery rivers of hell. We had won the fight, but had lost the track of the shard, which was on its way to reach Diablo. On his side, Zaytem had given everything, but was unable to save his Mund, leaving a furious Fern to his grief.
Goodbye, brother. Drift in the sea evermore.
Zaytem had not said his last word though, and was about to start tracking the fanatics, and was to come back to us once he found their trail. As for our hero, time had come to report back to Westmarch. Karshon was bitter that we had saved an orphan at the expense of the shard, and he was kinda right to think so. But the war was not lost, not yet. And we came to the conclusion that our only hope to retrieve the shard was to find the Bride of Hell before she finalized the expedition. It was our last chance to prevent the return of Diablo, Lord of Terror. This is how this chapter ends. I hope you enjoyed this summary, and see you later for more story in the dark world of Sanctuary.